Have you ever wondered what happens when a NATO power stops taking orders and starts writing its own playbook? When a nation once bound by Western promises decides to build its own empire of influence, not with permission, but with purpose? That's exactly what's happening right now, as Turkey and Pakistan join forces in the skies, forming an alliance that could shake the foundations of the world's most powerful military pact. A silent power shift is taking place within NATO's very walls, and it's not coming from an external enemy, but from one of its own strongest members, Turkey. For decades, NATO has prided itself on unity, on the idea that its members move in lockstep against shared threats, guided by a common set of values. But when Turkey began deepening its military cooperation with Pakistan, that unity started to look more like a facade. Turkey is not a marginal member of NATO. It's a central pillar, controlling critical airspace, hosting key NATO bases, and fielding the second-largest standing army in the alliance. So when Ankara starts conducting joint air exercises with a non-NATO country, sharing defense technologies, and discussing long-term strategic projects with Pakistan, the implications are enormous. It's not merely about friendship between two nations, it's a shift in global alignment that directly challenges NATO's authority and cohesion. What makes this even more alarming is that this partnership doesn't exist in isolation. It's forming at a time when Turkey's relationship with the United States and Europe has grown strained, from disputes over defense systems like the Russian S-400s to disagreements over how to handle conflicts in Syria and Libya. By choosing to partner more closely with Pakistan, a country outside the Western Bloc, and long viewed with suspicion by Western powers, Turkey is signaling that it no longer feels bound by NATO's strategic preferences. The symbolism is powerful. A member of NATO looking east rather than west for cooperation, for inspiration, and perhaps for independence. Behind the scenes, NATO planners must be quietly wondering how far this shift will go. Because when alliances fracture, they don't usually collapse overnight. They erode from within. The air drills, joint training, and defense agreements between Ankara and Islamabad might look harmless on paper, but they represent a subtle recalibration of loyalty and influence. Turkey is asserting that it will no longer be told who it can or cannot partner with, and that assertion, coming from within NATO itself, represents a silent but significant redistribution of power, one that could redefine the alliance's future balance for years to come. The cooperation between the Turkish Air Force and the Pakistan Air Force has evolved from a friendly exchange into a deeply strategic partnership that is reshaping regional air power equations. What makes this alliance unsettling for NATO is not simply the symbolism of two Muslim-majority nations working together, but the depth of their military integration. Turkey has become a global leader in drone warfare, combat tactics, and defense manufacturing, while Pakistan has decades of experience in conventional and asymmetric air warfare, shaped by its long and volatile history with India and its participation in Western-led conflicts in Afghanistan. When these two experiences merge, it creates a potent fusion of battlefield innovation and operational expertise. Joint air exercises such as Anatolian Eagle and other bilateral training programs have already provided both nations opportunities to study each other's tactics, communication systems, and command structures. This means that the partnership is not limited to ceremonial drills, but extends into real, transferable combat experience. Turkey's growing prowess in producing advanced drones like the Bayraktar TB2 and Akinci, combined with Pakistan's expanding JF-17 Thunder program, a fighter jet co-developed with China, suggests a possible technological exchange that bypasses Western suppliers altogether. For NATO, this represents a gradual erosion of its technological monopoly and a threat to the interoperability it depends on. The more Turkey and Pakistan align their training, systems, and doctrines, the more they drift away from NATO's influence. In military terms, it's a decoupling of mindsets. Turkey and Pakistan are building an air force philosophy rooted in autonomy, resilience, and adaptability to local challenges rather than Western command structures. This evolution could soon lead to a self-reliant aerospace ecosystem, independent of NATO's control, capable of supplying weapons, sharing intelligence, and even coordinating operations without any Western oversight. That is why Western strategists are not merely watching two allies fly jets together. They are witnessing the early stages of a new defense axis forming quietly in the skies, one that could redraw the global air power map and undermine NATO's long-held dominance over aerial warfare doctrine and defense technology. The growing alliance between Turkey and Pakistan exposes one of NATO's most dangerous weaknesses: its ideological fracture. NATO was founded on a promise of shared values, democracy, collective security, and loyalty to Western leadership. Yet today, one of its most powerful members is openly questioning that very foundation. Turkey, long frustrated by the hypocrisy of Western politics, has begun carving out its own strategic destiny. It no longer wishes to be a passive participant in NATO's grand design. It wants to be an independent actor, defining its own interests rather than accepting orders from Washington or Brussels. Pakistan fits perfectly into this new mindset. Both nations have faced years of diplomatic double standards, being called allies when convenient and scapegoats when global politics demanded it. Their partnership is not just about defense or trade. It is a political statement, a rebellion against Western dominance disguised as cooperation. For NATO, this ideological rebellion is far more dangerous than any military maneuver. When a key member starts questioning the alliance's moral legitimacy, it creates cracks that can't be repaired by mere diplomacy. Turkey's refusal to conform to NATO's foreign policy line, whether by purchasing Russian S-400 missiles, confronting European powers in the Mediterranean, or siding with Pakistan on Kashmir, shows a growing defiance that directly undermines Western unity. And Pakistan, having long experienced sanctions, drone strikes, and shifting alliances with the West, finds in Turkey a partner who understands the value of sovereignty over submission. Together, they are rewriting the rules of strategic partnership. They are building an alliance based not on ideology, but on mutual respect, shared struggle, and common geopolitical interests. This challenges NATO's very identity, which depends on ideological conformity to sustain its influence. If one member as powerful as Turkey can break away from this conformity and thrive, it sets a precedent for others to question their dependence too. The Turkish-Pakistani cooperation thus becomes more than a military arrangement. It becomes a symbol of independence from Western hegemony. NATO's concern is not only that it may lose control over one of its members, but that this defiance could inspire a chain reaction across the alliance, pushing others to reconsider whether NATO truly serves their interests or merely binds them to an outdated Western script. The strategic geography of Turkey and Pakistan adds a layer of complexity that makes their growing Air Force alliance particularly concerning for NATO. Both countries occupy regions that have historically served as gateways of power, influence, and conflict. Turkey stands at the crossroads of Europe and Asia, controlling the Bosporus and Dardanelles Straits, which are vital maritime choke points linking the Black Sea to the Mediterranean. This means Turkey directly influences the naval access of both NATO and Russian fleets. Meanwhile, Pakistan anchors South Asia and provides a bridge to the Middle East, Central Asia, and the Arabian Sea, regions that have become the epicenter of modern geopolitical rivalry. When these two strategically positioned nations align militarily, especially in the realm of air power, they create an immense arc of influence stretching from the Balkans to the Arabian Sea, one that overlaps multiple Western interests and security zones. For NATO, this partnership isn't just a political issue, it's a geographic nightmare. Turkey's strategic position has long given NATO the advantage of containing Russian and Middle Eastern movements while ensuring control over southern Europe's defense line. Pakistan's position, on the other hand, places it in close proximity to China, India, Iran, and the Persian Gulf, four of the most sensitive geopolitical theaters in the world. If Ankara and Islamabad coordinate air and defense strategies, they can effectively influence the flow of intelligence, trade routes, and regional military activities across this vast territory. This level of cooperation could reshape the balance of power across Eurasia, undermining NATO's ability to maintain its influence along its southern and eastern flanks. Moreover, both nations have developed independent channels of defense diplomacy that go beyond traditional Western alliances. Turkey's increasing military footprint in Azerbaijan, Qatar, and Libya, combined with Pakistan's strong defense ties with China and Gulf states, creates a multi-layered network of influence that operates beyond NATO's command structure. This web of alliances allows Ankara and Islamabad to leverage geography as both a defensive shield and a bargaining chip. NATO's fear lies in the possibility that Turkey could use its position within the alliance to gather intelligence, shape strategic narratives, and subtly recalibrate the balance of power toward this emerging bloc. Geography, in this case, is not just about location. It's about leverage. And together, Turkey and Pakistan hold some of the most strategically valuable ground on Earth, capable of tilting regional dynamics and diminishing NATO's dominance from within. The most profound concern for NATO regarding the Turkey-Pakistan Air Force alliance is not just the military collaboration itself, but the ideology that drives it, the birth of an alternative model to Western hegemony. For decades, NATO has functioned as both a military and political instrument of Western dominance, dictating not only how wars are fought, but also who gets to decide the rules of global defense cooperation. Turkey and Pakistan are challenging that order. Both nations have grown weary of relying on Western technology, approval, and moral validation to secure their national interests. Their cooperation is not simply about shared aircraft or joint drills, it's about reclaiming control over defense destiny and redefining what global security partnerships can look like outside the traditional Western mold. This philosophical realignment, the belief that powerful nations can build and sustain their own independent defense ecosystems, threatens NATO's monopoly on influence more than any missile or drone ever could. Turkey has already demonstrated how rapidly such independence can evolve. Its indigenous drone program has reshaped modern warfare, providing effective low-cost solutions that rival Western systems. These drones have proven their worth on multiple battlefields, from Libya to Nagorno-Karabakh, showing that cutting-edge technology no longer needs to come from Washington, Paris, or London. Pakistan, too, has invested heavily in indigenous military production, particularly through the JF-17 Thunder project with China, which serves as a symbol of technological self-sufficiency. When these two countries exchange expertise, share defense strategies, and co-develop future technologies, they are building a model that undermines Western defense monopolies. This cooperation could inspire other countries, particularly in the Muslim world and the global South, to pursue similar paths of autonomy, creating a network of nations less dependent on Western military power and policy dictates. For NATO, this is deeply unsettling because it signals the decline of its ideological influence. Power in the 21st century is no longer just measured by fleets and warheads, but by the ability to shape global norms and values. If Turkey and Pakistan succeed in proving that defense independence and regional solidarity can rival Western models, then NATO's greatest fear will come true: a new defense identity that exists entirely beyond its reach. This alliance represents more than a partnership. It symbolizes a quiet revolution against a system that has long defined who leads and who follows. The alliance between Turkey and Pakistan's air forces is not just a headline or a diplomatic gesture, it's a signal a signal that the world is entering a new era of multipolar power. For NATO, it represents the rise of independence from within, a rebellion born out of frustration and ambition. Turkey is no longer content being the obedient soldier in a Western-led alliance, and Pakistan is no longer waiting for validation from powers that have long dictated its role in the global order. Together, they are rewriting the script, crafting a defense partnership built on sovereignty, mutual respect, and shared strength. This alliance challenges the myth that Western dominance is permanent, showing instead that nations once considered secondary can become architects of their own destiny. NATO's greatest fear is not a war between nations, but a war of ideas, a world where its control no longer defines legitimacy. And that is precisely what this partnership represents: the dawn of an era where power no longer flows in one direction, and where alliances are forged not by ideology but by independence.